I used to believe love could withstand anything. I thought commitment, patience, and sacrifice were enough to keep a marriage strong. I was wrong. My name is Lucas, and this is a story of how my love, my devotion, my entire life, became nothing more than a cruel joke to the woman I vowed to cherish forever. Sophie and I had a love that felt effortless in the beginning. Late-night drives, deep conversations, spontaneous adventures. It was a kind of romance that made people envious. We built dreams together, talk about our future, and when we got married, I thought we had everything we needed. But dreams are fragile. They shatter without warning. As I threw myself into building my business, working long hours to create a life for us, I never noticed the cracks forming. I was blinded by my belief that love meant putting someone else before yourself. I never saw how Sophie had already started choosing herself first, long before she ever admitted it to me. It started small, complaints that I worked too much, that she needed space, that she needed to find herself. At first, I supported her. I thought she wanted self-care, hobbies, something to make her feel fulfilled. But no, what she really wanted was freedom. From me, from our marriage, from everything I had given her. And the fool, kept giving. I noticed a shift. The way she no longer waited for me to come home, no longer cared about our conversations. Flowers, surprise date nights, thoughtful gifts, none of it reached her anymore. Her phone became her lifeline, the device she clung to more than she ever clung to me. Late nights turned into early mornings, where she stumbled through the door smelling of expensive perfume and alcohol, but never of me. Still, I held on. I convinced myself it was just a phase. But phases don't come with secret phone calls. Phases don't come with deleted messages and locked screens. Phases don't turn your wife into a stranger sleeping in your bed. And then one night, she made her position clear. "If you leave, I'll replace you by morning," she said, her voice laced with arrogance. "Do you really think you're that special?" My stomach turned. I stared at her, realized for the first time, this wasn't my Sophie. This was someone else entirely. Someone who had no remorse, no regret. And in that moment, I knew I had already lost her. The night she came home drunk, laughing at the idea of me leaving, I knew I had to get proof. I had spent too many nights doubting my own worth, wondering if I was a problem. But deep down, I knew the truth. So I did what any man pushed to his limit would do. I hired a private investigator. And when I saw the photos, when I saw the videos of Sophie tangled in another man's arms, looking at him the way she used to look at me, something inside me snapped. She didn't just cheat. She flaunted it. She let another man hold what was once mine. And the worst part? She didn't even try to hide it anymore. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. That would be too easy. She thought she could break me. She had no idea who she was dealing with. The moment I held the damning evidence in my hands, the photos, the texts, the videos, I knew there was no turning back. Sophie had turned our marriage into a sick joke, a performance where I played the blind fool, the devoted husband, while she entertained herself with another man. The very thought of it sent rage surging through my veins like wildfire. But I wouldn't let my anger consume me. No, anger was too short-lived. I needed patience. I needed precision. Revenge wasn't about lashing out. It was about control. If I wanted her to truly feel the weight of what she had done, I needed to plan everything perfectly. So I waited. I acted as if I were still the same oblivious husband, giving her space, letting her continue her little game, all while quietly dismantling her world piece by piece. I started with our finances. She had grown comfortable in the life I provided. The luxurious dinners, the weekend getaways, the designer clothes she loved to flaunt. That life would soon be a distant memory. I met with my financial advisor and ensured that all of my assets, everything I had built, was moved out of reach. Our joint accounts? Closed. The credit cards in both our names? Canceled. My investments? Reallocated. I made sure that when the time came, she would have nothing left but the shell of the life she once had. Then I turned my attention to her social life. Sophie thrived on appearances. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was performing. Every Instagram post, every carefully crafted caption was designed to present the image of a woman living her best life. She fed off admiration, validation, the constant stream of attention that made her feel desirable. But what would happen when that attention turned against her? I started gathering the pieces, preparing to expose the real Sophie to the world. The hardest part was keeping up the act. Every time she walked in late at night, reeking of expensive perfume that wasn't mine, my fists clenched under the table. Every time she laughed at some text, hiding her phone from me, my blood boiled, but I never let her see it. Instead, I played my role, the patient, devoted husband, the one who understood that she needed space, the one who let her go on her little girl's trips, while I secretly collected every ounce of evidence I needed to crush her. Then, I started laying traps. One night, while she was in the shower, I casually mentioned that I had met with a divorce lawyer, not to file, just for advice. The way she froze, the way the water kept running but her body went rigid, told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't ready to lose me. Not yet, because despite everything, she wasn't looking to be free. She wanted both worlds, her stable, loving husband at home and the thrill of whatever new man she had latched onto. And that's what made my revenge even more delicious. She thought she was untouchable. She thought I would always be there, waiting, begging, willing to fight for a woman who had long stopped fighting for me. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. I needed a grand stage, a moment where she would be completely blindsided, and I found in the form of an exclusive party, a gathering of our closest friends, business associates, and even her family. Sophie loved the spotlight. She thrived on being admired. So when I casually suggested that we should throw a celebration, something to reignite the spark in our marriage, she jumped at the opportunity. She had no idea what was coming. I sent out the invitations, making sure to include the people who mattered most in her life, her parents, her closest friends, even her new lover, though he had no idea he was walking straight into a trap. When the night of the party arrived, I played my role flawlessly. I greeted guests with a smile, shaking hands, making small talk as if everything was perfect. I poured Sophie a drink, whispering in her ear about how beautiful she looked. She grinned at me, completely unaware of what I had in store. Then I stepped onto stage. Tonight, I announced, I want to celebrate love, commitment, the kind of partnership that withstands all obstacles. Sophie beamed, soaking in the attention, unaware of the storm about to hit. I reached into my pocket, pulling out the envelope that contained everything, the photos, the texts, the proof of her betrayal. And what better way to honor love, I continued, my voice steady, than by sharing the truth? The room went silent. Sophie's smile faltered. I turned the envelope over, letting the contents spill onto the table. The room gasped. People leaned in, their eyes scanning the damning evidence. Her lover, who had been lurking in the crowd, turned pale as his own name was plastered across the screen I had set up for the occasion. Then I turned to Sophie. "Tell me, darling," I said, my voice dripping with cold amusement. "Do you still think I'm replaceable?" She stammered, her face drained of all color. The crowd murmured, whispers turning into outright disbelief. Her parents looked at her in horror. Her friends exchanged glances, already stepping away, as if they didn't want to be caught in the blast radius of her downfall. And her lover? He did exactly what I expected. He bolted. Coward. But Sophie wasn't my problem anymore. My revenge wasn't about winning her back. It was about making sure she knew, without a doubt, that she had lost. The aftermath was exactly as I had envisioned. Sophie tried to reach out, desperate to explain, to manipulate, to find some way to salvage the wreckage she had created. But I didn't give her the satisfaction of a response. I moved forward with a divorce immediately. With the evidence I had, the proceedings were swift and brutal. No alimony, no shared assets, nothing. She was left with the scraps of a life she had so carelessly destroyed. The social circles that once adored her turned cold. The men who had always given her attention now kept their distance. She was no longer the trophy they wanted. She was damaged goods. And the lover she had risked everything for? Gone. The second he realized the party had exposed him. He ghosted her, blocked her on every platform. He had never loved her. He loved the game. And now that she was ruined, she wasn't fun anymore. Sophie called him, texted him, begged him to meet her. All she got was silence. For the first time, she felt what it was like to be abandoned. And I was already moving forward. A week after the party, I got the first text. It was simple. Can we talk? I stared at my phone, unimpressed. A few days ago, this was the same woman who had scoffed at my existence, who had laughed at the idea of losing me. And now, she was testing the waters, seeing if I would still be there. I ignored it. The next day, another text came. I know I hurt you, but I never meant to. Can we meet? Never meant to. I nearly laughed. Sophie hadn't just hurt me. She had mocked me. She had stomped on everything we built together and acted like she was too good for me. And now that her world was crumbling, she thought she could crawl back. No, I ignored that text too. Then the calls started. At first, 1 or 2 a day, then 3, then 5. By the end of the week, she was leaving voicemails at 2 in the morning, her voice trembling, her words frantic. I listened to one out of curiosity. Lucas, please. I just want to talk. I miss you. I miss us. Miss me? No. She missed the life I had built for her. The stability, the security, the attention. But I had already given her everything she wanted. Freedom. And I had no intention of ever giving her another second of my life. By the time the divorce papers arrived at her doorstep, she had already lost everything. Her job? She was barely hanging on to it. The CEO of her company had heard the rumors, and with her reputation in shambles, she wasn't the golden employee she used to be. Her friends? Gone. The glamorous brunches, the weekend getaways, the endless compliments on social media, all of it vanished. Even her parents were ashamed. Her own mother stopped speaking to her. And then, the final blow. The apartment she had moved into, the one she thought she could afford without my money, she couldn't keep up with the payments. I knew because I had seen her listing items online, selling the expensive handbags and jewelry she once flaunted so proudly. Months passed, and I barely thought about her, until the day I ran into her at a cafe. She was sitting alone, staring at her phone like she was waiting for someone who was never coming. She saw me before I could turn away. Lucas, she breathed, as if my name was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. I stared at her, at the woman who once laughed in my face and told me I was disposable. She had aged in ways that had nothing to do with time. There was no arrogance left, no smugness, no certainty that she was above consequences. And when she looked at me, I knew what she wanted, a second chance, a lifeline. But I wasn't a man she abandoned anymore. You were right, Sophie. I said, my voice calm, measured. I was replaceable. Her lips parted, hope flickering in her eyes. But so were you. And with that, I walked away. Not out of anger, not out of hatred, but because my revenge was never about hurting her. It was about proving to myself that I never needed her in the first place. And as I stepped outside, breathing in the crisp evening air, I smiled, because I had finally won. I had once gifted her something meaningful, but she had nowhere else to go. Still, she kept calling until, finally, I answered. The night was quiet when my phone rang again. I didn't check the name. I already knew who it was. This time, I answered. Lucas. Her voice cracked with relief. Thank God. Please, I just want to talk. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, letting the silence stretch. Talk about what? I finally said, my tone unreadable. Us. There's no us, Sophie. She inhaled sharply, and I could hear the slight sniffle, the telltale sign she was about to cry. Please, I know I made mistakes. I was selfish. I was... She choked on the words. I wasn't thinking. I let my ego ruin everything. But I swear to you, Lucas, if I could take it all back, I would. I let out a soft laugh, one that held no warmth. You can't take it back, Sophie. That's the thing about choices. They come with consequences. I know, she rushed. But we had something real. You loved me and I... No. My voice hardened. I loved the idea of you. The woman I thought you were. But that woman? She died the moment you betrayed me. Silence. For the first time, Sophie had nothing to say. I could feel it. The moment she realized this wasn't just a fight she could talk her way out of, she had destroyed something that could never be rebuilt. "Goodbye, Sophie," I said, and before she could protest, I hung up. This time, I blocked her number. No more calls. No more texts. No more Sophie. After that, something inside me shifted. I no longer felt anger. No longer felt the weight of betrayal dragging me down. I was free. For the first time in years, I put myself first. I threw myself into my business, and within months, I expanded it beyond anything I had ever dreamed. The numbers skyrocketed. The profits doubled, and investors who once hesitated were now eager to work with me. In my personal life, I started traveling, seeing places I had always wanted to see. I met new people, reconnected with old friends I had lost touch with during my marriage. And then, one day, I met someone new. She wasn't like Sophie. She didn't play games. She didn't make me feel like I had to prove my worth. She saw me, respected me, and when she smiled at me, it felt real, not like Sophie's practice smiles, not like a performance. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive again. I thought blocking Sophie would be the end of it. I assumed she'd get the message, accept her fate, and move on. I was wrong. The first sign of her desperation came through mutual friends. One of them, Mark, called me out of the blue. "Man, have you seen Sophie lately?" I hesitated. "No." "Why?" Mark sighed. "She's not doing well. She's been asking people about you. Keeps showing up at old places you used to go." He paused, lowering his voice. "She got kicked out of her apartment. Couldn't pay rent." I sat back, absorbing the information. I had known this was coming, but hearing it confirmed felt strange. She tried crashing at a friend's place, but they turned her down, Mark added. Her parents won't take her back either. That part didn't surprise me. Sophie's parents were proud people. They had been humiliated when the truth about her infidelity spread. They wouldn't bail her out of this. "She's couch surfing now," Mark continued. "But honestly, I think she's hoping you'll step in." I let out a breath, shaking my head. She's wasting her time. 2 weeks later, I was at a high-end restaurant with a business associate, closing a deal that would solidify my company's future. It was a moment I should have been celebrating. And then I saw her. Sophie wasn't sitting at a table. She was behind the bar, working as a waitress. I almost didn't recognize her. Her once carefully styled hair was tied back in a messy ponytail. She looked thinner, almost gaunt, like she had lost weight from stress. The glow, the confidence, the arrogance she had once carried so easily, it was gone. She was a shadow of the woman she used to be. She hadn't seen me yet. I watched as she approached the table, forced a smile, and took orders. Her hands trembled slightly as she wrote them down. The Sophie I once knew would never have been caught dead in a job like this. Then she turned and our eyes met. Her face paled. Her lips parted in shock. For a moment, she looked like she might cry. I lifted my drink and took a slow sip, watching the emotions flicker across her face. Shock, shame, regret. And then I did what I knew would destroy her the most. I looked away, as if she was nothing more than a stranger. That night, I expected her to reach out. Sure enough, the next morning, an unknown number flashed across my phone. I didn't answer. Then a text came through. "Lucas, please, just talk to me." I ignored it. Another message. "I know I hurt you. I know I was selfish. But please, I need to see you. Just once." She needed closure. But I didn't owe her that. Still, a small part of me was curious. Not because I wanted to reconcile. That ship had long since sunk. But because I wanted to see just how far she had fallen. So, against my better judgment, I sent a single reply. "One meeting. That's it." She responded immediately. "Thank you. Can we meet at the cafe near our old place? Tomorrow at noon?" I agreed, but I wasn't doing it for her. I was doing it for me. The next day, I arrived 5 minutes early. I spotted Sophie immediately. She was already there, waiting, nervously wringing her hands. She looked different up close. Tired, worn out. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by something simple and modest. Her nails, once perfectly manicured, were bare. She had been humbled. She looked up as I approached, eyes wide with emotion. "Lucas," she whispered, like she still couldn't believe I was real. I sat down, keeping my expression neutral. "You wanted to talk. So talk." She hesitated, searching my face for something. Maybe a hint of man who used to love her. But that man was dead. "I don't even know where to start," she admitted. "I've made so many mistakes. I don't deserve your forgiveness." But her voice broke. "I just need you to know that I regret everything. Losing you was the worst thing that ever happened to me." I watched her, unmoved. "What do you want from me, Sophie?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't know. Maybe just to know that I meant something to you, that it wasn't all a lie." I exhaled slowly. "You did mean something to me, Sophie, once, but that was a long time ago." Her lip trembled. "I wish I could go back." "You can't." Silence stretched between us. Finally, she wiped her eyes and nodded. "I understand." She stood up, lingering for just a second, as if hoping I would stop her. I didn't. I just watched as she walked away for the last time.